Hey, so this is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're talking to the Pittsburgh, right? Pennsylvania alternate
We're from
rock.
Philly.
Oh, Philly,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Philly. Sorry, Philadelphia. Um, the Sex with Roller Coasters, and we're gonna talk about your brand new album, DWEEB.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah, it's I've been listening to it,
Oh,
you know,
awesome.
since it came out, and I've got some favorites, but we'll probably go and talk through all the songs unless you want to know which songs I'm really digging.
Well, yeah, sure, absolutely.
Well, I like the video for "Spill Your Guts,"
Okay, thank
the
you.
lead track, and but "Owl Tree Jewel," I've been really kind of enamored with that, and
Cool.
and I kind of picked up. I don't know if you guys are channeling this, but it kind of has this like Paul Weller kind of squeeze vibe, but then
Hmm.
you got this kind of like punk thing that the Squeeze would have never done. But you've got this groove that kind of reminds me of Squeeze a little bit,
Cool.
which is cool. And I actually have picked up like that kind of vibe on some of your more groove oriented songs.
All right.
And then like the last song in the album, George and Mary, kind of felt like a basement tape, like from like Dylan and the band.
Yeah, we're kind of going for like a porch thumper type deal.
Yeah, I love the basement tapes because they had this really awesome kind of stripped down sound, and George and Mary kind of reminds me of that.
Right, right.
That really stripped down sound. So I'm really vibing to those three songs like a lot. And,
Cool.
and the fourth one I really dig is like, who the hell is Nicholas McKay?
Right,
Part four
yeah.
and five.
Yeah, it's a continuation of our other song there.
Yeah, I really like that song a lot. But we can get into like all the songs and how you guys, put them together. So maybe
Sure.
since the first song has a video,
Right.
maybe you can talk about like why you chose that to be like the lead and why you chose that song to be, a video over some of your other songs.
Well, I think when we basically had all these songs for a while now, and we spent a long time trying to figure out a good order to put them in, because we wanted to make the album like an experience that you could both experience as an album, like I would listen to,
Yeah,
or you could also listen to them separately, which is like the more modern sort of like
yeah,
iTunes Shuffle or whatever. But that song, when we wrote it, uh, we kind of forced ourselves not to fall into our habits of making things long and psychedelic and crazy weird. We tried to just make it as much of a straightforward pop song as possible. And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's why we kind of led with that foot forward, is because I think it's the most approachable on the album.
Yeah, well, I think "I'll Treat Joel" is really got a cool vibe. But I come from the, I used to listen to REM, the college radio. So what I think is cool is maybe not what the kids think is cool. But
Well, I
I,
mean, we love REM too, so.
so I mean, "I'll Treat Joel" kind of has that kind of Michael Stipe play on words kind of thing that he used to do a lot.
Right.
And I like the way it works because that song really, I dug what you did with it, the kind of alliteration with it, and it's just really cool. But I understand why "Spill Your Guts" is probably more accessible to modern audience, you know.
Right, yeah.
But
It's
"I'll Treat Jewel" is kind of like, yeah,
Well, um, speaking about Al Trijul specifically, that song kind of has like an interesting story behind its creation.
hmm
When we first sat down to even write songs, when we decided we were going to write songs again, we were literally just jamming. Like that song is just two chords, like two major chords,
yeah,
and we're literally just jamming. Like Alex was doing like this funk thing. He's like just throwing stuff together. And then Dave made a stupid joke that we should put like this loud breakdown
and it,
thing in the front of the song as
yeah,
opposed to at the end.
yeah,
We're like, fuck it, let's make it a song. But I think that maybe that's why you jive with it, because it's just like a bouncy jam song, you know?
yeah. Well, it had this kind of Paul Weller vibe, and then you threw that kind of like crazy Trent Reznor, like Husker Du punk, real powerful, you know, glitchy thing in there, and then
Right.
and then it still then you got back into that groove, and the groove is really good, and it feels organic. And I'm the kind of guy, like when I record, I like to do a lot of organic jams turn into songs. That's kind of the way I do it. And so I appreciate the kind of vibe on your album, because I feel like you're a full band, writing songs in a more old school way. And compared to a lot of the people who do stuff like it's just straight Pro Tools, not using real instruments, kind of just doing everything with the MIDI control. And this sounds cool to actually hear a band collaborating.
Yeah. I mean, that song in particular, we weren't really even planning to write like a song. Like, we were just playing together, and then it kind of just fell into being a song.
I think that if you go back in the history of rock and roll and a lot of the great bands, some of the great, like, Fleetwood Mac, the Doors, like a lot of stuff with, the Allman Brothers, they could get into like Derek and the Dominoes, all that stuff was like jam, and then they tightened it up. I mean, Neil Young and Crazy Horse were famous for doing these long jams and then tightening them up. But I just think that's a great way of writing. Composed, and I understand people go into this very tight thing today with Pro Tools and all the DAWs, and they make these formula, type songs that are very structured. But I kind of like the jam structure.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on the specific song. I think, jams work well for other songs, and then structures can work well too. Like, sometimes we'll make the structure to ruin the structure, I guess, like on purpose.
If you go back to like Wilco on Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, they spent all their time taking a bunch of songs that Jeff Tweedy did, and then totally deconstructed them and broke them on purpose to kind of make that album. But that's a technique, and it can go either way. You can go too far with it, you can go as far as you want with it. But I always enjoy just understanding how artists come about things, and hearing that was a jam is kind of cool, because I was kind of feeling it. Though Spill Your Guts, it's really cool. I mean, it has a vibe. It's got the length of a track that in the marketplace today, that's around the length of the track you want to run something like under 4 minutes, under 3 minutes sometimes. But you guys got a really tight vibe on that song. I really like it. But personally, Altry Joel is kind of like, I'm old school, so.
I going back to Spill Your Guts, that kind of started as just like a voice memo, like on my phone. I was literally doing chores one day, just humming to myself, and I got the core like vocal melody. And then bringing that to practice, we wrote the music behind it. We just threw some chords, and Alex made a cool bass riff. And so we like consciously decided to take it and sort of make it more straightforward than we would normally do as a band. So it was actually kind of a challenge to make a pop, like a straight pop song. So I feel like we have all these things where we get into these like really deconstructed, like almost like explode the song. We always do that. It's a bad habit.
Well, depends. I mean, I appreciate it. There are fans that appreciate it.
Well, I mean, we love doing that, but we do that in every song, so we tried to change it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes it harder because, like, I think I heard a complaint like when Wilco said, "Well, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot songs are very difficult to perform live,
right?
Because they were so deconstructed, and they went and did so many things off key and strange tape loops and all this stuff. It's hard to reproduce it." So that's kind of sometimes ends up being the problem. If you go too crazy, then when you try to play something live, you can't really play it the way you recorded it. You have to play it in a different way.
Yeah, we always write our songs before we record them. So there's always the performance version is always the root of the song. But when we do get into the studio and we have the luxury of thousands of digital tracks and stuff, we like to layer it and really make it as crazy and audibly interesting as possible, or orally, excuse me.
Yeah, I think that's what's cool about the album. I think that's what some of the kids have lost in the playlist generation, is the idea when you build an album and you put your headphones on and you listen to this album DWEEB all the way through, you feel a vibe, you feel what you're doing. And, a live performance is cool. It's different. It's a different thing from what an album should be. In an album, you can go and do a lot of really cool things, in terms of what you can do with the production. And live performance is a separate, like, animal.
Right. Yeah. And we kind of treat them differently as well.
Yeah. So Teenage Mutant Chemtrail Lizard, that's very kind of like out there. I mean, you kind of went. Can you maybe talk about like the motivation for that?
For the song in general,
Yeah.
Well, if I can talk about first, because we did spend a ton of time like really focusing on where the songs landed in the album. We kind of decided to front load it with really energetic songs, and then kind of let you ease into something a little more relaxing. So that's kind of why it falls where it is. But that song is really just sort of, at least musically, like an homage to our really our big, I don't even know what the word is, our influences of like grunge music and like really heavy punk music and stuff like that.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I'm a big fan of like the Clash and Who's Kadu and the Replacements, and
right,
and it has that kind of vibe, but then it's kind of this kind of psychedelic thing, on top of that. Because not all punks are psychedelic. Not all punks. Some punks just kind of go straight at it.
Right.
And so you guys are mixing the kind of like Sid Barrett, Pink Floyd ish idea with like punk, which is you get a couple bands doing that today. But yeah, that's cool that you go that way.
Yeah, I think largely because the song was made off of that main guitar riff that the song kind of just launches into, and because of how aggressive that is, when we went to like put lyrics to it, we really kind of tried to describe like just trying to make like the narrator of the song like this terrible person that's like a real piece of shit. and we that kind of that breakdown area is almost like a moment of self-realization where you're almost like programmed into being this way as like a natural defense to the world around you. I don't know, I feel like I'm talking through my teeth here.
No, that's cool. I mean, I understand. I mean, what you're trying to get at, it's kind of like, it's kind of a de-evolution.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like
what Devo was talking about.
Right. It's almost like you're developing spikes to keep people at a distance, and I think that was the vibe we were going for. I don't know if it achieved a specific theme.
Like the antisocial nature of like being a rude boy or being like a punk or being an outsider,
but like aggressively being a punk. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that goes back to like the Who was super aggressive when they first started. They were like the first punks,
right?
They had this very aggressive, with Moon going crazy, this very aggressive sound before, and nobody really knew how to categorize it. They said, "Oh, that's just rock," but it was punk,
right?
Early Who is like really, really hard punk, and you're kind of channeling that kind of energy, which I like.
Cool.
I like that a lot. So. But then, like you said, when you get further down the album, you start to mellow out, and that kind of gives you the nature of an album.
Right.
And albums have like points where they, you can start off either mellow or hard, and then kind of mellow out, and then get hard again, or kind of fade out. So it's cool when you get down to some of these other songs. Like Kill Them with Kindness and Guns, I enjoyed that song a lot. I'm probably vibing on it a little bit more, but I've been kind of zooming in on a couple of songs, like I mentioned. But I'm starting to really like. I mean, I like the whole album. I think it has.
Oh, thank you.
It had that feel of an album, which is rare today because so many bands are just releasing singles, and you guys like really look like you constructed or you picked your top songs, or songs that can fit together, and that's cool.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, with Kill 'Em with Kindness and Guns, this was actually kind of funny the way this started, just that opening bass riff. I actually was working on something that I felt was more like musically satisfying, which I never ended up using. ended up totally throwing it out, and I like couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. And while I was just kind of idly thinking, I just started kind of tapping away on my fretboard, just kind of idly, and it's like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting as like a starting point, and then forgot about it, and then started doing it again at a practice, and we ended up sort of jamming around with it, and sort of built the whole song just around that, which I thought was interesting. I personally feel like I get a lot of writing done just spending time just kind of idly, like
just like working things out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you find that like you'll have an idea, and then suddenly, you had this idea and you were going to go with it, and then suddenly something else jumps out and it kind of takes over. And so like I've got like all these like demos that I'll run through something, and then I might have like 5 versions of it, and then I'll find like the first thing I did I really like, but maybe only like half of it. And then I start to like mix things together. But it just seems like a lot of times when you're in the process, like you have this idea and then it kind of goes where it goes, and it's like the muse comes in, and maybe if you kind of key into it, if you have like an open mind as a musician, you kind of realize like, oh, I can't be super rigid. I got to be more, I can't be open to where it's going to go. It sounds like you kind of go that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like one of the most valuable things for me personally is just spending the time just playing music, and it's almost like a numbers game where the cool riffs and stuff like that'll kind of come, but I think like for me it's always just been a product of spending the time playing, and sometimes I'll play for hours and feel like I'll get nothing, and then other times something will just kind of happen, or things just pop up unexpectedly, and I'll have 3 ideas at once or whatever, but it's totally unexpected. And I think the only thing like I can control is actually putting the time in to actually play. And
so when you're doing these kind of like writing sessions, or you're doing this kind of you're just being a musician and you're putting stuff down, do you always like run a tape and just like and then go back and listen to it, or do you suddenly decide, oh yeah, you got it, and you go back, or do you continuously like run something and then go back and listen, or do you kind of just like, oh, that's it, and then you put it down?
I think we each have our own process, because I think we each get most of the work done when we're by ourselves. Like I've seen Alex even just like watching TV, playing bass before. And sometimes he'll even just come to practice and just start playing things while he's waiting for Dave to set up his drums. Mm-hmm. And then he won't even realize that he's doing something that I think is cool. And I'll just start screaming over top of it. And that becomes this song in particular. He brought that cool fret tapping riff to a practice once, and we're like, yeah, let's jam this. And he's like, let's jam what?
So when do you guys decide to like start rolling the tape? Do you make a decision that like you all listen to what's going on, and then you start like putting it down into a song, or do you, like some bands used to like they continually tape, they would go like Feldman from the Eagles. He would just like run all these tapes. Like Hotel California was like a tape. He was just running in his house. He would just continually put guitar things down on these reels and then bring them into like Henley and them. So get at like how you do it.
Most of it for us is just committed to memory. We don't even like record our practices or anything like that. If we have something cool, we'll jam it and we'll keep it in the back of our minds. But I also think that the sort of memory loss that happens between practices is beneficial, because if you forget to do something, that can kind of lead to something unexpected that you wouldn't normally do had you remembered what you did the first time. And that's sort of what happened with this song in particular, because we have this first half of the song, and originally that led into like 5 other parts, and we're like, this is like getting messy and confusing. Mm-hmm. And I remember I just listened to OK Computer Radiohead album, and I was like, yo, let's do this Karma Police ending where we just changed the song in the last
Oh, like
act or
progressive rocker type idea. Like,
yeah, so we literally lifted that idea and we're just like, let's do this crazy effect-driven key change and just kind of change it from this grungy fret tapping song into something more melodic and pop oriented.
That's what I like about you guys. You guys kind of bring some of the progressive rock ideas, so like Radiohead, yes, kind of old school like ideas of doing those changes, which is cool because I think that my childhood is the 70s, so I love progressive rock. So,
absolutely. And I just like it. We even treated the album the way that we treat individual songs. I just like to sort of, when I'm listening to songs, I like to be told a story, even if it is just through music.
Yeah.
If you can have someone start the song with a certain emotion and then evoke a different one by the end, I think that's what makes a successful song.
Oh yeah, I feel like songs are like novels. We have really good artists.
Absolutely.
Right? They're like listening to a novel. And so when you have really great artists, they set that tone. You can kind of see what's going on. You can picture it without the video. You can kind of picture it. And every fan listen to an album and they get the picture of what they think it is.
Right.
And an artist has their idea of what it is. But the idea that you can evoke those pictures or those memories or the ideas. I mean, that's what music is supposed to do. Just like any other art form. Like when you do it right, then you evoke that kind of feeling from people. So I think that's cool that you guys are doing that.
Right on. Yeah. And I don't want to stick around with this particular song too much because I can talk about each song for hours. But yeah, and even like when we got down to the lyrics, which for this song and the one that precedes it, we didn't do until basically the entire song was written. I kind of just like scat over top of it until we decided to put actual words.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like a continuation of that feeling from Teenage Mutant Chemtrail Lizards, where I kind of feel like the first half of the album is just like extreme aggravation. And I think that ending that we have to this song is almost the transition for the album into like the next mindset for the next few songs, where we're going from something super angry and frustrated into something a little more cathartic and understanding.
Yeah, because that's when you start to get into Insignificant Other and then Lullaby in A.
Right.
You start to, Lullaby in A really kind of slows down. You got a keyboard going on. It sounds like a keyboard. Does that just a plug-in? Like a plug out?
Yeah, it was. It's just there. We have a MIDI thing that we were running through an electronic processor, and that originally just started as a guitar part. But I was really trying to go for that sort of music box sound.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. There's a famous Genesis album that has a song called Music Box, and they used that kind of this music box.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what we were going for.
Yeah. So you had that kind of vibe, which is cool. Yeah, because my keyboard, so I love hearing
absolutely
that type of stuff. But yeah, it was cool that you guys brought that in, because so maybe Insignificant Other, so that's like your transition song on the album that kind of transitions to like the second half of the album.
Right. And once again, there's many layers to that song, but I think we kind of went from the first few songs, which were very musically styled after our early teenage influences, and this song is more musically styled toward what we listen to now, but lyrically about being a teenager and being awkward and just sort of relishing in that that sort of like everyone's ugly and nobody cares type vibe.
The kind of Anno me. I was a sociology guy, so it's idea like the social dissonance and anomy and what teenagers go through. It's
right.
Like not being connected or trying to connect and being this kind of other, wondering why you're the other. And there's all these little subgroups of others, and like who's hip and who's not hip, who's part of the crowd, who's not, who's not alpha.
And I think that was an overarching theme for the album in general, is this sort of acceptance that there's all these labels and stuff, and they don't even matter. And so I think that it's okay to even embrace them because like so everyone's so concerned with how they're perceived that they don't realize that nobody cares because they're too busy wondering how people are perceiving them.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what this song is about. Is, you know, it starts off and it's almost like you know, somebody waiting for a date or something like that. And
it's kind of like the definition of dweeb. I mean, you don't have a song titled dweeb, but this song kind of
right
the dweeb vibe. You know, the idea, like, well, you know, like when, you know, the punks and the mods, and, you know, what Pete Townsend was talking about, like in Quadrophenia, like you're kind of channeling, you're creating that character. You know,
right.
To me, and this song kind of defines the dweeb.
Yeah, I kind of, because I think it's like an origin story without specific names for at least me as as an individual, and a lot of it has to do with like, oh, you're expecting these certain magical things to happen, but you're so preoccupied with trying to set this, you know, events in motion that you're not realizing that nothing is happening when things could be happening because you're so obsessed with trying to make this one thing go right. And
I think it's really cool. I mean, you got that kind of social isolation, kind of teenage thing going on. The experience to be able to describe it in that way, and, you know, you got the title itself is like, you know, kind of, you know, it really gives a lot of insight. You know, so it's really cool, and then the music, you know, goes with it. So
right, the title, I think, was just a stab at being young and seeing like your first individual that you're attracted to and just being like, this is the one forever, not realizing that you're 13 and you know, you're gonna live for 70 more years.
Yeah, but what you think, you know, in that moment, that's your world,
right? And it matters.
Yeah. And it matters to you, and you think it's very important, and you think it's like super critical, but then over time you realize it's like, okay, you know, it's just a moment. But, you know, at the time you can make it really, you know, mean a lot.
Right.
And it's the perception is reality. So that's what you perceive, that's what it is, you know. But yeah, it's really, I enjoyed it because I'm always listening to, you know, artists to try to pick up what they're saying, and you guys are saying some deeper stuff than a lot, you know, some of the other bands doing stuff today, you know, which is cool.
Cool, yeah. I'm really worried that people can't understand me, so I'm very happy to hear that you can understand some words.
No, yeah, I can understand. I love the singing is on this album is really great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like you guys in a way are kind of like an alternative Squeeze. I really felt like a Squeeze vibe on this album. I don't know why. I just because when your rhythm section and your bass playing, the bass playing was really on it.
Right.
But then you guys are kind of got this alternative vibe where you're mixing it up and you're not doing it straight. You know, you mix things in. You play with noise. You play with like punk aesthetic.
Right.
Noise and, you know, power chords and stuff. And it's cool that you're willing to take risks. You know, you're willing to like do structures that are not typical. Right. You know, which is, I think it's great art to do that. I think it's good not to just, you know, it's cool to be able to play, you know, what everybody likes, but it's cool to actually have your own style, have your own imprint, and you guys have your own imprint. Which is
one thing that was fun about recording this particular album is that each song almost had its own personal challenge for us as musicians within our own band. Because we've been making music for so long, we do have these patterns that you could probably predict. And we often would just have a song and we're like, let's do this, which is the opposite of what we would normally do. And this song, Insignificant Other, you know, it changes keys like every 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's what I really like about what you're doing with this record, because I find that it was kind of like everybody running MIDI controllers, and the computer will tell you, well, you shouldn't do that. You know, either you're in the wrong key, or you've done the rhythm off, and it wants you to fix it.
Right.
And I think it's like being an artist, you got to make the decision. It's like, no, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, there's beauty in chaos for sure. Yeah, you probably tell from all the crazy sound effects we put on everything.
Oh yeah, I come from an era where, you know, I like Lou Reed and the Velvets. You know, I like white heat, white light. You know, I like stuff that's kind of sonically dissonant. You know, Sonic Youth. You know, it's
Oh
stuff
yeah,
that
yeah, we
stuff
love
that's
Sonic Youth. Yeah,
stuff that's off. You know, on purpose because people are are trying to do something different. You know, and it's not always you don't always have to be on the beat. Sometimes being off the beat, I mean, in jazz, I mean, it's like you don't want to have everything just being predictable. Sometimes you want it to have things a little off, a little strange, a little different to give it character. Yeah, and you guys are doing that a lot, which is this album. I think it's really cool.
yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, actually, for the next song, it was kind of funny. Like the idea of like towards the latter half of the song or whatever. In a lot of our songs, we'll do this whole like loud, soft thing, and towards the end of Lullaby in A, which is the next track, we do this like sort of build up, and it seems like it's gonna explode into this loud part, but then it gets even quieter at the end, which is kind of like a joke on ourselves and the way we write, because we would normally have that be the real loud chorus with all the whatever, and then we kind of went the opposite way on purpose to like mess with ourselves, I guess, a little.
Well, in the 70s, that was always the thing. Like, you get the Led Zeppelin, and they'd kind of go run through something kind of quiet, then go loud and go quiet,
Oh, yeah.
That's like, Yes used to do that. All of these bands, the progressive bands, they'll always kind of run through something to have a big, powerful, middle section, then kind of go down, be soft, and come back. It's kind of nature of progressive rock. You kind of do that. But, it's cool that you guys, like, saw your pattern and decided to break it a little bit.
Yeah. And it's funny, this album has a lot of our like fastest songs and also like a lot of our like slowest songs and stuff too. So
I think that's what's interesting is when you like our spaceship is singing, kind of jumping over Autoneurotic, which I really like.
Yeah.
But I think that song was really interesting. We can talk about, maybe we'll get to Autoneurotic. We'll go to that one because we're going order. But I really appreciate that. Well, that song, because my character, like I play Josephine Electric, she always kind of goes off in this kind of like psychosexual craziness that is Josephine Electric, my alter ego.
Yeah.
And I always kind of take like my idea of like she's part of my personality, but she's like really aggressive, like dominatrix person, and she just goes off. And this Autoneurotic kind of like, wow, it's like Josephine would really appreciate
that. Cool. Maybe we could set them up one day.
And I think she appreciated the vibe in that song. So maybe you can talk about where it's coming from. But like Josephine was really vibing on it.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, that was another like more pop structured song that we did. But it's also, again, about like kind of like maybe a little going crazy, and then this whole like institutionalized kind of vibe, I guess. But we set it in like a pop or more pop setting.
Yeah, kind of like kind of like Alice Cooper kind of idea. Like he was always doing this, playing on these crazy, like Alice is like psycho. But then like I kind of take ideas from that and do it with Josephine, and I kind of that's why I think I really picked up on it, because I like that kind of playing with things. Ozzy used to play with that, being playing that crazy man. It's like a 70s idea to kind of do that, but it's cool. I mean, I always appreciate it. I always like kind of going out there, and when I hear something like that, it just kind of I key in on it, and I like it. So that song's really jumping up on my list.
Right on. If I could just jump back before we jump forward, I want to shout out our good friend Tony, who's got this crazy noise project called Moyo Gash, and he helped us with that breakdown in Owl Tree Jewel. Because when we went to record this album, we went to get some of our friends, because we literally did all of DWEEB 100% by ourselves, record, perform, mixed, mastered, designed, like everything. And
that break, this guy helped you with that?
Yeah, he has got, like I said, he's got this crazy noise project, and we asked him to make noise in our noise section, and he really makes it dark and scary, which is exactly what we were going for.
How did he do that? I want to get secret sauce. Was he using like synthesizers or just like all kinds of
He has this really strange setup where he's got like a mixer that's plugged into 1,000 pedals that are plugged into each other, and he's like a real knob turner. He's like really good at
so he's kind of doing. I've seen like Radiohead and Wilco guys like play like that. The way they you can kind of use effects like modular Euro racks, and you can run them if you know what you're doing. You can get some of the effect pedals to act like little synthesizers. And all kinds of crazy like loops and beeps and blops and weirdness.
It's really far out. He's got a cool project going. But yeah, so when we were looking, I had this idea that I kind of want to do a duet song, and so I wrote this song that for the longest time we were just calling the ukulele duet, because I just had this quick riff on ukulele, and I wanted to get someone to help me sing it. And we were at this concert. We were playing this house show in Temple, I think, and a bunch of cool bands at that show, and we really vibed with this one band called Rally Point, which if you're into like math rock and stuff, I would definitely suggest. They're really cool, local to the Philly area, doing lots of shows and cool stuff. But their lead front person was just really enamored with her guitar skills and just have this really cool voice. So we asked her to join us on this next song. Our spaceship is sinking.
Oh, so she's on there?
Yeah. She's the one singing from the left, and I'm on the right.
Oh, because I was wondering if you had just used a vocoder or something.
No, that's our friend. And I really think that her voice kind of being so different from mine, but also sort of in the same register, kind of goes for the
it worked really good, because I thought you were just playing with some kind of vocal studio tricks.
No, yeah, she's real good.
If she ever wants to get an interview, let her know I do that.
Yeah, well, definitely forward her your information.
Because I love interviewing bands. I've interviewed tons of bands, and if she's interested, I'll be into that.
Yeah, their whole band, Rally Point, like I said, really cool. We go to a couple of their concerts just to go to them. But yeah, so for our spaceship is sinking, when we originally sat down, we kind of just had these like faux words, and so when we sat down to actually put vocals in place, I kind of wanted to like break this idea of like the man and woman singing, like a love song or whatever. And I really kind of want to make this sort of like angel and devil on your shoulder conversation about like anxiety and just being like beating yourself up to like a great extent. And so I think this song, in a sense, is in a journey of that inner mental conflict, almost to at a point where at the end, that sort of refrain that gets repeated is just sort of accepting like self-defeat, but almost using that as a tool for success.
It's interesting you use the spaceship analogy. It's like sinking, so it's not crashing. It's like sinking into like water or some murky area. So it's kind of like this, like, with sinking, it kind of implies like you're drowning or you're so it's interesting, the choice of words and the idea. The concept. Right.
Because like I said, we were just calling it this ukulele duet for a while. We didn't know what to call it, and we kind of just put down a list of things that we thought were cool. Mm-hmm. And I think that one specifically we chose because it really did vibe with the theme and like the message that we were kind of going for. Mm-hmm. Because you can't sink if there's no directions, because sinking implies downwardness.
Yeah, it implies like a failure. You're falling out. You're drowning. You're drowning. It literally, it always implies like you're like
right.
You're not making it. Something's like you're getting overwhelmed.
Right, and I think that the switch in keys at the end it signifies, at least to me, because I'd really like people to adapt their own ideas of what these songs are and what they mean to them. But for me, I think it's almost that finding success in your own failure.
Oh yeah, I think like if you're an artist, like failure drives an artist to create some of their best work. that's like in art and music, like sometimes your failure is how you grow, how you get better. And so like you kind of got to embrace that and not fear it. Though everybody fears failure because it's stressful.
Right.
Everybody wants to win, but it's when you can embrace, like, you have something and then you can take it and they take the charred remains of something that didn't work and then turn it into something great. That's like the great story of like all great art. Sometimes they take something that they're very tortured about and then turn it into something beautiful or something great.
Absolutely.
That can drive a lot of creative capability. So yeah, I totally dig that. Plus the idea of doing a duet that's kind of a non-duet.
Yeah. Well, even in the song structure, because like the lyrics overlap, it's kind of almost like they're talking at each other than to each other, and it kind of like increases the conflict.
Yeah, it's not the typical duet that you would have with a rock band and a female singer, doing. It's cool that you guys did that. I thought you were just playing with a voice recorder or playing with like your studio, changes or on your voice, and so that's really interesting, and it's a really, creative way of doing something. So I totally give you props to that. Yeah, it's awesome.
Right on, thanks.
So now Cardboard Tornado, that's what you tagged as explicit. But maybe kind of get at like the feeling you're trying to go for, because it kind of like a cardboard tornado. So it's like what I get the vibe. I mean, it was like just a kind of a clip, but it was like, is that part of a larger thing that you just clipped?
No, it's not.
No, actually, Alex and I think right before we wrote that, we had just saw the Suicide Machines in concert, who are this like punk band.
Okay.
And they're playing like a beer festival, and they like just had a whole bunch of like 30-second songs.
Oh,
and,
like speed metal kind of thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, just real fast, like quick punk songs like that. And I just think there's something powerful that you can kind of get away, like, because all of our songs, like, and a couple of them that we took off the album, they started getting into like, the 6, 7, even 10-minute mark.
Yeah.
There's later songs.
Yeah, so we just wanted to do, like, again, we have this thing where we just want to battle with ourselves, and instead of doing another 7-minute song, we're like, let's do a 30-second song.
Kind of like a land speed record. Like,
yeah.
They did this like very short, like 1-minute songs, 2-minute songs that were very fast, heavy speed, and it's cool, and it's a cool interlude.
Yeah, we just it ended up being 40 seconds, but our goal was to write a 30-second song.
Well, yeah, you almost did.
Yeah, we came close. It was just kind of like the droning noises that kind of put us over the mark.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really like the melody of Who the Hell is Nicholas McKay. I like the kind of has a very melodic sense to it. It's a very interesting song. I mean, I was really vibing on it. I like it. I was kind of, I don't know. I was feeling like a lot of different things. Like I'm feeling like a little Pink Floyd-ish, and it's like kind of indie college radio back in the days, like REM and the
right.
Paul Westerberg, Grant Hart, Bob Mould. That kind of the idea of that kind of melody in alternative music, but have an edge to it. Which is cool. I've always, been attracted to bands that do that.
Right. And if I could just speak to song order for a second, I think that's something that at least I know Dave in particular loves, is having this extremely harsh noise-based song and then fall into that extremely laid back. It's not like jarring, like you almost tripped almost.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you go from the speed metal kind of interlude to this very melodic song.
Well, I would like to consider Cardboard Tornado a song. But yeah, Nicholas McKay, 4 and 5, because we wrote 1 through 3 on our last album, EP, whatever you want to call it, Pay Bills and Die. And it's just something that we kind of wanted to do is have this sort of like rock opera type deal, but we rather than sit down and come out with an album,
kind of stretch it out.
just do it episodically. Like you tune in next time for whatever.
Oh, so you got to continue this song into the next album with parts like 6 and 7?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But yeah, so we kind of just tried to pick up right where we left off, and parts 1 through 3 are very almost like pop punk esque, and we curse a lot and just speak almost downward towards this other character that there is. And so I kind of want to make a song about the fallout of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of got this laid back feel, and it just came from like a riff that I had from years ago, where I'm literally playing a C chord and then sliding it up to the F position. And you get this crazy open suspended F something chord, F major 7.
Major 7,
yeah.
7, yeah. Well, I love to do that on the piano. You know, keyboard players, we like to play with those too.
Right, yeah. And so it's just fun, and so that first part 4, if you will, you know, is just like just under 2 minutes. I think it's like a minute and a half. And that's just kind of the bridge from part 3 to part 5. And part 5, I would say, is the meat of this particular track.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things we tried to do, which obviously we failed in part 4, is just to have a song that was largely without distortion.
Yeah.
And we kind of just have this sort of, I think that's probably where you're getting that college radio vibe. This is a lot of chorus effect and just kind of tried to make this sort of sweet and somber recollection of something that always was, but was never noticed.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, it's like the IRS REM before they went to Warner's.
Right.
They used to have a lot of that really melodic kind of, you know, jangling. Not Bird's inspired a little bit, you know, but I always say it's like more Big Star inspired, but if people know who Big Star is, but
no, I can't say I'm familiar.
Well, Big Star was Alex Chilton. He was a guy, a teenager in the Box Tops, and he created a band called Big Star.
Right.
Big Star's kind of like a Velvet Underground. They're an American pop band that tons of people listen to, but nobody bought the records. Tom Petty listened to them, REM listened to them, like almost everybody in the 90s, like, you know, Paul, you know, a lot of the like great like indie bands said that Big Star, Radio City was like their first album, the #1 record, and then third.
Right on.
They were inspired by them. What they did is they did not heavy distorted guitars, but a lot of stereo chorus, a lot of reverb, a lot of tape delay, a lot of like Rickenbackers. They had very interesting chord choices and sounds that weren't heavy. They were very melodic.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's going on here is a light distortion just to kind of warming up the sound a little bit. But another reason why you might have vibes with this song in particular is the very end of the song is literally verbatim a jam session where Alex is just keeping the chords, keeping the riff of what he's playing before, and we're just kind of building up on that with layers and layers of guitar and progressive drums.
Yeah, I always love layering. You know, I'm always like overdubbing like tons of Moogs on top of Moogs on top of Moogs.
Right. Yeah, and this kind of started out as me messing with a looper pedal at the time. Of course, on the actual record, we can record each guitar separately, and we have a million more than we would in a live setting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of this building up jam.
Well, it's cool to do that because you get this kind of, you know, like orchestra guitars.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. It's, you know, it goes back to Hendrix used to do that in Electric Lady, you know, studios. He would do that for like Electric Ladyland. A lot of those things, he used to call them like sound paintings.
Right.
Because he would just layer, and when people ask like, what is that on Electric Lady? Well, those are sound paintings. He said, well, you know, it's atmospheric guitar, electric, you know, rock. That, you know, later bands like Pink Floyd and stuff really embraced it. But, you know, Hendrix was kind of one of the first ones to really go there. But,
right. Yeah, and that's a concept that we embrace with Open Arms. Is sort of like each thing is its own collage of sound. And I personally like really big sounding guitars, so a lot of stuff. And on this record in particular, is just guitars on guitars on guitars.
Yeah, but it's great to do that, because like keyboardists, we do that, because like analog synths, they're monophonic. So in order to build, unless you can get a polyphonic one, but in order to build the sounds, and we will layer all these monophonic, notes on top of
Right.
each other to build the chords. And
Right.
So we tend to do kind of like what you guys are doing. but it's a different thing. But I understand, the motivation and what the sound that you're getting at, because I try to do it myself a different way. But yeah, it's awesome.
Right.
Now, spores in the ceiling, like so maybe describe. I kind of get a picture of somebody's like the idea that is kind of like, oh, that's the kind of horrific. but like what motivated you to go there?
As per the song, it kind of came through accident, through one of Alex's many jams that he just brought with him. And I kind of rolled back the guitar like as far back as it could get rolled. And I really tried to keep it as humble, for the lack of better words, as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's really isn't any guitar on this song at all.
It's kind of sparse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sparse.
And we kind of just tried to go for like this really dark, vibey kind of sound. And like lyrically just try to speak of a particular character or person that's really desolate, and I try to use a lot of imagery and stuff like that to portray that, which kind of comes to fruition in that bridge part with a lot of tapping bass, etc.
Yeah, so the tapping, is that became like a big technique for this album, is doing tapping type of playing?
I think in general, it's just something that we like, something that Alex has been messing with for a while. And some of our other songs, like there was very sparse on Pay Bills and Die, but we just try to like absorb all of these different genres that we like to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
As per this, particular riff.
Yeah. So this one in particular, yeah, I like using or trying to use tapping as a way, sort of in ways other than the typical like shred guitar type idea. So like sometimes I think like one of the best ways to think about it as a technique is like, it's a way you can reach notes that you can't reach with one hand. And if you break it down that way, I think, it gives you a way you can think more melodically instead of just thinking how many notes. And then, during that bridge part, it does pick up a little bit. But I think with the repetition, something I was kind of going for there was just almost more of a textural type vibe where, I'm hitting a lot of chord tones in there, but it's just kind of a repetitive cascade of notes that just kind of loops over itself.
Yeah, it kind of gives it that atmospheric thing, like with keyboards, what we'll do, like with analog synths, you'll use like digital delays and like spring reverbs to create this kind of very atmospheric sound.
Right.
It's really big. It ends up being super fat. And you can end up making like one note sound like it's like a chord.
Yeah.
And so we like to play with that in octaves and stuff to like see what we can do with our effect systems to like make it sound like more than what it is. Sometimes if you look at it, it's like, wow, that sounds real fat. It was like maybe just two notes, but it was the way you ran the effects on it or the way you played it. You try to play in different ways. Like synthesizer players, we always try to mimic other instruments, and so we don't play like piano players. We try to play like I'll try to play like a bass player. I'll try to play like a saxophone player. or try to play like a drummer. So you have to try to, imagine being something else. So it's interesting you're doing the different techniques to kind of go beyond what somebody would think a guitar player would do,
Right.
which is cool. Because synthesizer players, that's what we do, because we have to try to mimic the instruments that we're using, for our sounds. And so we play in different ways that are not traditionally piano playing techniques. But so I can understand trying to open up on your guitar as many different techniques as possible.
Yeah. And as for the name, throughout the song, there's a lot of like house metaphors and like this house falling down, just kind of like this person falling down and whatever.
Yeah, it's like a decrepit, oldie,
and actually,
like a horror scene. He's like, man, it's like it's like Chucky's gonna show up or something.
Yeah, kind of. But actually, Alex did have mold in his apartment ceiling while we were writing that song. And we kind of.
Use the real life situation.
Yeah.
It's a desperate plea to the landlord.
That song is dedicated to Alex's landlord.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll get the bad. Now they're getting bad press. Maybe they'll fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it comes to like I like George and Mary. Like I said before, it had this kind of like Dylan and the Vibe basement tape thing where it's very melodic, very, stripped down. And I love that. I listen to like a lot of, things that are not highly produced sometimes that I think like when you get down to doing like vocals with guitars, very simple harmonies and things, that in this world where everybody's using like CDJs and plugins and all this stuff, sometimes they going backward a little bit. George and Mary, I really appreciate that song. I like the feel of it. It feels like something from the 70s to me.
Yeah, thank you. We were kind of going for, I guess, like maybe slightly like outlaw country-y, I guess, a little bit, but
like original country, not modern like pop country.
Yeah. And it's actually like a nice contrast. Like normally, I guess you would think, and again, going with the theme of going against ourselves, like generally you would think like a big like epic ending, such as the ending of Spores in the Ceiling, would be like a nice album closer. But we wanted to put like an upbeat, quick, like a nice palate cleanser at the end. So that's kind of what George and Mary is. A nice like upbeat break from the normal like.
Yeah, I like the fact it has that country. I'm a big Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, I like that old school country. Like,
that like, whole like
Americana, like the band, even though they're all Canadian. They get tagged with Americana, but most of the band was from Canada.
That's funny. Johnny Cash was definitely an inspiration for that song and stuff, especially with the two vocals and everything, the slightly offbeat like harmonies and stuff, which were sung by our friend Rebecca Zimmerman. She's like a folk rock pop artist in our area, super talented, and has a bunch of her own music. She just dropped a record that she wrote in Ireland. Which is really great. And so she
interview her too.
She helped us sing on the song. We were going for like a Johnny Cash vibe, also like Bright Eyes and stuff. Just that whole
Connor, you got a Connor Oberst vibe on this album. I forgot to mention, because I would keep on saying that you guys sound like Squeeze, but you also sound like, Bright Eyes and Connor Oberst.
Yeah. We definitely have a little bit of that in there too. And especially on this song, like,
this song like, kind of reminds me of Casadega type things,
for sure. Yeah.
Which I thought was like, the masterpiece, but but you're in that kind of zone on that song. You're kind of channeling that, which I think was one of his best records. And so, that has a really cool feel. I like that feel.
Right. Thank you. But if I could just take a second to speak directly to the song name, because this is a song that I've had for a long time. It's probably had this for 10 years. I
wow,
originally,
it's an old song.
yeah, I originally wrote it when my grandfather died 10 years ago. And it's something that I really want to put out, but it kind of struggled with a little bit. Not that it really even says anything in particular, but it was just sort of the sentimental thing, and I thought that it was just very important for me, at least, to put it out there. And it's just kind of just, straightforward, just your three major chords going over and over again. But I really wanted to style it after the music that we had always listened to, which like you said, is that crazy like Johnny Cash and all that older sort of country pop music,
Yeah, Americana, like a real kind of like American music. You got jazz, you got rock, you got country, and the art forms that we kind of created. Like Johnny Cash kind of created his own genre of country, which is like the outlaw country, but just like to me, it's like the real country music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, modern country music is all
it's
808 drums and
yeah,
it's almost hip hop music at this point.
Yeah, well, it's become like pop, and it doesn't
absolutely.
It doesn't have like I guess you still get Willie Nelson playing with Neil Young, and Neil Young, Canadian again, is playing more country music than but it's cool to actually channel that vibe, because if you listen to the band, you listen to these great old artists that did that genre, there's something about the honesty in that genre that's what I like about it, because you kind of strip down, you get to hear the vocals, you get to hear the guitars. There's not a lot of production over it, but it's just the honesty of it. That's what.
Yeah, it was very intentional for that. We normally don't sit down and try to fit in any particular genre. We're kind of all over the place. It's scatterbrained and just a bunch of genres mashed together. But it was very important for this to be all clean guitars and just straightforward vocals. And we even had like a crazy vocal sound effect at the beginning, but just decided not to use it just because we wanted something more straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, that song is so good, and
thank you. That means a lot.
That you guys could do a whole album of songs like that.
Yeah,
no, I know
thanks.
You guys. That's not your main genre, but it was so good. And I don't know, in this market, maybe not enough people would be into it. But I really enjoyed it. I like that. I would like to hear more songs like that, because I like it. I mean, that's where I kind of, when I listen to stuff like on my own, and I'm an electronic musician. I'm like, why are you listening to that? I listen to everything, but yeah, I have a big love for songs like that. So yeah, I really give you a lot of props to that, because it's cool. That's the nature of this album. The fact that you're willing to put different types of songs together, and it still fits with the rest of the album. But it's really interesting, and it's cool, and it's why you listen to an album rather than a playlist to kind of get a vibe.
Right.
And this really closes the album out really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so like, this is the Family Electric Coast, and we've been talking to Sex with Roller Coasters, and this album is really good. I hope you have a major success. Are you doing touring to support it?
Yeah, we got a couple things going.
Cool. Yeah, we're mostly centered in the Philadelphia area, but this summer we're doing our next show is June 22nd in the Philadelphia Burbs, and then August we're playing in South Jersey, Brooklyn, DC, like a couple places up and down the East Coast.
That's cool, because this is a really good record and deserves to be heard. I'm pushing it. And just to let you guys know, like Anchor, now we've hit like 14,300 fans that have been listening to our Anchor show. And now Anchor is part of Spotify. So we get pushed out to not only Spotify, but to like 11 other podcast platforms.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So when we put this out there, one of the cool things we can do is like we can set it up as a highlight link on your Instagram. And so on my Instagram, I will actually create a highlight that will actually be a hyperlink to the full episode on Spotify podcast.
Cool.
And then I'll push that out. It's going to go out to my Facebook, my Blogger, my Twitter, and all my other social accounts. But yeah, we just encourage people to stream your album, download your album, buy your album on Amazon, buy it everywhere you can buy it.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Yeah, I always try to tell people, it's like, streaming is cool, but if you really love a band, go on iTunes, go on Amazon, and go buy it. Because that's how you really support a band.
Yeah, the best thing you could do as a fan of any local artist, regardless if they're a musician or not, is interact with their content, even if that's just leaving a comment on a post, or rating something in iTunes, or just like the things that you don't even normally think about doing are all, a great help, especially with today's like crazy computer algorithms that push your content in certain directions.
Yeah, we're trying to get you on a bigger playlist, like pushing, your fans to say, hey, get 10 other people to listen to it, get another 10 people to listen to it, pushing it into the bigger playlist, and like that helps helps get you out there, listen to you on YouTube, get your YouTube numbers up. Yeah, it's just anything what you can do. So I understand not everybody's going to buy it, but if you're a big fan of the band, then I'm always saying, please, buy your material.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we're always looking forward to talking to you guys. When you have another album out, or you have any other big news, we're always going to put you on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we're psyched this year. After like 30 years in the business, we got signed to 2 labels.
That's awesome.
We're on Bentley Records and Mojo Heads, and that tells you like a 50-year-old can still do something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you just hold on to your dreams, because you never know. It took me 30 years to get signed, so you just stick to it, and you can get out there. So yeah, so I'm real excited for your album. I hope everybody goes and listens to it. I'm going to push it on the podcast. I'll put the links up, and I hope you guys have great success, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Have a great night.
You too, man.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.